I guess while I have a few extra seconds, yes, I'm Jason Hand from VictorOps. It's an on-call alerting and incident management platform. Happy to talk to you about it after all this. But today's talk is on the emergence of ChatOps. So originally I had titled this something like email should die, or something like that, but I wanted to go with something a little bit less morbid. So we're going to talk about chat. Are you aware that 28% of your time, my time, our time, is spent or wasted simply managing email? And if you can do the math down here, that's an 80-hour work week, which I know all of you love because we love our 40-hour work week so much that we do 2 of them by Wednesday. Furthermore, 20% of our time is spent just simply looking for information. That could be information in a wiki, could be something in a Google Doc, could be something in somebody's head. We're spending a ton of time just trying to find information from our colleagues or from other different sources. All these numbers are coming from the McKinsey Global Institute, a paper that they had put together. And what they concluded was that productivity can be increased 20 to 25% simply by moving to more synchronous types of conversations and communications. So this is the way that I look at email. I get a ton of email, and especially ones that come from internal. I don't necessarily read them right away, if at all. I like to keep my inbox pretty slim. If I see any badges on it at all, I kind of go in and just mark it as read and come back to it. How many in here have like numbers that are just outrageous on their inbox right now? Okay, well, so tweet me, whoever has the highest number, I've got a special prize for you. I had somebody who had 200,000 one time when I gave this talk. But the point is, our inbox, or at least my inbox, and I'm sure many of you, kind of view it as simply just a black hole. This is where things come in and they don't necessarily come out, and it's going to take a long time for us to get around to it. So that's where things like chat start to come into place. And what I'm really talking about today is this idea of ChatOps. How many are familiar with the term ChatOps? Awesome, that's quite a few. So I talk a lot about ChatOps. I wrote a book, ChatOps for Dummies. But just the whole concept of moving all these different tools to create context and information and ability to do different actions within chat is really, really fascinating to me. So I've got a few examples. This is something, me as a developer, I can come in and just do a new Jenkins build. You could do this with Travis, you could do this with any kind of tool. I could also come in here on the ops side. VictorOps, we're incident management, so we really love chat in terms of dealing with outages and incidents, and it adds all this extra really cool context, which shows up in your post-mortem just automatically. You don't have to go scrape and copy and paste and do everything that's already in there. So let's talk about a few benefits of ChatOps. The 2 big ones are learning and sharing. These are the ones that are very much fall into the ideas of DevOps. So learning and sharing, you're constantly just teaching everybody how things get done. You're teaching them about different information regarding your infrastructure, your code base, just your company in general, all by putting it into chat. Speed and security. Let's cut down on context switching simply by just doing all of the actions that you're going to do anyway right in chat. So instead of me doing something from command line and then coming over here and telling everybody on my team that I did it, it's all just done in one step. There's also some security. Brainstorming and fun are kind of 2 side ones, or 2 other benefits that I add in there. A lot of us, we aren't real good at getting us all together in one room and just coming up with really creative ideas, but you put us into a chat room and we can come up with some really cool stuff. The point of all this is situational awareness and tribal knowledge. Being able to just know what's going on and be completely in line with everybody on your team because you're all in one space, sharing everything that's happening, creates this unbelievable level of situational awareness, which is really, really key in a lot of different aspects of our day-to-day business. Now I need to pick on my coworkers for just a minute. Back in I guess it was, June, July, I looked and 91% of the messages that were taking place in Slack were actually direct messages. Now this is so anti-DevOps because we're totally blackboxing and siloing all of those conversations. Now these aren't secret conversations. These aren't like trade secrets or anything like that. These are just me or somebody else talking in a direct message, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose of this DevOps stuff that we talk about. I haven't heard it yet today, but this is a very famous sort of acronym for DevOps, and it's just a culture of automation, measurement, and sharing. And that's exactly what ChatOps provides you. You start automating different informations to show up in your chat, you're measuring all this different thing, and of course you're naturally sharing it. Jesse Newland of GitHub, where by the way the term ChatOps was originated, he has this really great quote, which I think is just an awesome way to describe ChatOps. And he's been talking about this since 2012, so this isn't really a new thing. People have been doing bots and all kinds of really cool stuff in IRC for a long time. Here's your takeaway. The ChatOps stuff provides all these different efficiencies and different ways to get things done in a much quicker, much better, more DevOps-y way, and I really, really love talking about this stuff. 5 minutes isn't nearly enough time to discuss it. Grab me in the hall. Maybe we'll do an open space on this. The book's you can download it for free, or I've got a couple copies in my bag. If you'd like one, just come grab me. And thanks again. I'm Jason Hand, and Jason Hand on Twitter. This might be exciting. Liam.
Well, I guess I'm a little late to the game. My name is Frayer, and I want to talk about a couple of fallacies surrounding the term DevOps in the industry now. So, how many of you, if asked, can give me a definition of DevOps? By show of hands. How many of you hesitated because I asked that question? Yeah. Problem with the DevOps is because it's an industry buzzword, there's so many different definitions around by different people. If I ask 10 people in the audience to give me a definition, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get 10 completely different answers. But if we agree on one thing today, just in this 5 minutes, just one thing only, is that DevOps is not a thing. Right? It's not. It's not a widget, it's not a thing, it can be referred to that, it can be picked up. It's not a thing. Just agree with me on this one. It's also not a product, despite what many other people will try to tell you. It is not a product, it's not a suite of products, it's not an accessory to the product, it is not a complete solution, it's not any of that stuff. You can't give money to somebody and get a magic fix it as And as such, you can't buy it. Again, people will try to sell it to you, but you can't really buy it. You can't buy it, can't sell it, can't trade it, can't list it. But again, it doesn't mean people won't try to. And when they do, because it's a buzzword, they will use a lot of other buzzwords around that and try to present it as a DevOps, right? I mean, how many of you heard about DevOps-enabled cloud? There you go. DevOps, big data, DevOps, I don't know, monitor, all of the DevOps stuff. It is not interchangeable with other buzzwords. I understand the marketing people really try to, but it really is not. Like, I heard somebody recently tell me that they're planning to offer DevOps operations as a service. I'll let you think about it for a second. So you cannot use DevOps interchangeable with any of those words. DevOps is not agile. It is not cloud. It is not, I don't know what's another buzzword right now. Automation, big data, it's not any of that. So when you realize you can't buy DevOps, what do? You hire DevOps, right? Because that's what people do. And the biggest fallacy when trying to hire DevOps, and what you see around it, is that people try to hire DevOps as its own separate department, own separate group. Because having two dysfunctional groups is not enough, you gotta build a separate one. It solves all the problems because it has the title DevOps. But and another thing is when I hear from people about hiring is they don't understand what DevOps is. So people put DevOps on everything starting from an automation engineer to a desktop support. Because if you put DevOps on it, it becomes 35% cooler. But the main thing that people complain, specifically from engineering, from development, is that employers assume that if it has the title DevOps, I don't need to hire a developer and operations person. I can just hire one and everything can be done, right? Have the price. How many of you remember Webmaster in the 90s? There you go. It is not that, right? It is not the same for one person sitting lonely in the corner doing the website, backups, and fixing the office printer. It is also not a call for mediocrity. Like another concern that I heard from people is that saying that DevOps promotes a jack of all trades and master of none. Realistically, it's not the case. It promotes masters of many. Not all, because it's really difficult, but masters of many, because the more complicated the systems become, the more you need to know about it top to bottom. And actually, what's probably more interesting is DevOps is not a new thing at all, right? People have been doing DevOps pretty successful for years. I don't know how many of you have been doing DevOps before the term existed. Right. People have been doing it pretty damn successful with real large architectures before the term was cool, right? Arguably, the tools became better. Let's be honest. But what's now being accomplished with Chef and Ansible and Git, we've done with a shell script, Perl, rsync, and a hell of a lot of duct tape. mean, at the end of the day, there is no magic button for DevOps, right? It's a philosophy, it's a culture. So if you need to bring a DevOps into organization, you have to embrace the culture instead of trying to buy it or bring somebody who will work alongside with everybody just to do it. So keep calm, embrace DevOps. Thank you, and if you really want to work with DevOps the right way, we are hiring. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lewis. I'm going to interrupt my own dramatic pause. I work with Delphic. I've spoiled a bit of this, but I'm going to take some of the issues that we work on and sort of go problem first, explaining the challenges in test data management today and what sort of solutions you get. So this is a picture. I pulled it off the internet. You too can find this with Google image search. I just want to emphasize that DevOps refers to practices along a long process. We're going to focus in on the testing section of that process, which is a necessary part of that. Now, if you look at testing today, you've got a test stack. Tests are running on stack. You've got code and virtualization and configuration and hardware deployment tools, but data we often see is being managed in the same way it was historically. You've got a bunch of new tools and a bunch of different layers of stack, but with test data, you're relying on older strategies like full production clones, shared data environments, or subsets and synthetic data. The problem with these strategies is that they suck. Dramatic pause. So full copies is sort of your obvious idea. I want a copy of the data, I'm going to make a copy of the data. You'll have a full copy, your tester will be able to test against the full data represented in production. The problem with that is that it's going to take you forever. It's going to take you forever both in a hardware sense, it's a long, slow operations making full copies of data, and much more than that in a process sense. You're going to have to requisition a lot of storage, requisition a lot of network time, bug everybody that you know. So that's not going to be great because you're waiting on executing those tests and you're getting gummed up. Then you can move to shared environments, or you say, it's too much trouble to make a copy for everybody, we'll make one copy and we'll give that one copy to everybody. The problem with that is going to be amusingly illustrated by a picture involving dogs in very few seconds. There it is. You got the environment, you got a bunch of people who want to use the environment, they're very excited about the environment, they seem to have an adorable set of tags, but they are not collaborating on using it well. And even if they were playing nicer, only one of them can really hit it at a time. You're only able to do tests as available. Then you say, well, it's hard to move all the data, we'll make subsets, we'll use synthetic data. That sounds great, because subsets are really small, sort of by definition, if they're proper subsets. Synthetic data is arbitrarily small, because it's as small as your imagination. The problem with that is illustrated by this obvious meme, which was obvious. If you're testing against data that's not real, you're going to get results that aren't real. And then you're going to turn into this evil baby who set a house on fire. We propose a different model than being an evil baby who sets a house on fire. So these traditional solutions, they slow you down heading into tests, they make you wait to execute your tests, and then they set your deployments on fire. This is bad, unless you're a pyromaniac. That is good. What we're proposing is an alternate model for managing your test data that avoids that. So the name that we're looking at for the area as a whole is data as a service. Obviously, I work for a data as a service provider. I hope that wasn't like I'm not spoiling my investment in this, but that's how I learned about all this stuff. So what do data as a service products do? Well, it's solutions that are going to give you data delivery to and across application environments that are automated, that are as a self-service, and that are in comparable timeframes to other DevOps tools that we're talking about. So minutes to seconds. What's going on under the hood? What we're working with at Delphic and what we see other people looking at is ZFS shared over NFS. So we've got sophisticated file management. We're making it available over the entire network. What that gives you is fully independent writable clones to run your test against, inline deduplication and compression to consume resources. What that gives you is a delivery time in minutes. Full clones can take days to weeks for the full process, even hours to days just for copying over the data. If you're moving your data virtually, that's going to deliver in minutes. Why that's especially relevant to DevOps practitioners is it matches other DevOps tools. So for example, setting up an application without a container can take you days to weeks. Just executing can take you hours to days. Docker can get it for you in minutes or seconds. And, these automation tools can get it for you in minutes or seconds. That's important because you want your different pieces to be moving at the same speed. It gives you quality at scale. Because the clones are full and they're fully independent, we avoid the problems that we were seeing in the previous ones where people were competing over shared resources or developing against incomplete or inaccurate data. It gives you quality at scale for a DevOps deployment. If you move from running one test to 1 million tests, but your data is still able to service one test, you are not actually running 1 million tests. you are running a million partial tests and relying on that same inadequate data capability. Further benefits, part one, there's a lot of self-service that becomes available when you've done this automation. If you make it simplified, if you make it automated, you can have an end user who's not, every admin in the world stepping in on it. On the other hand, if you're managing it through a central tool, administrators can see what's going on. Further benefits too include these 4 bullet points, which I'm not going to read out loud because my mouth is getting kind of dry. But further benefits part 3 is the really exciting slide, which is to say that all of these benefits are things that we found, companies like us found, when we moved the product out to users. We thought we were selling something that would save you a lot of storage. We heard from people that it was saving them process. We thought that we were saving them, we were accelerating ops. We heard that we were transforming how people were managing their tests. Come talk to me, tell me what else we're doing. I'll tell you what we know about it already. My dramatic pause has begun now.
I don't see him sitting up here. Is Chris Corriere? Yay! No, I apologize. It's on me because Chris volunteered during lunch, so I'm totally stepping on your slide.
Hey, I'm Chris Corriere. I am a DevOps engineer, and that's a thing that's happening, so please stop telling me I don't exist. Unicorns can knock that off. I appreciate it. People are hiring in this role, so how are we going to do it intelligently is the question I'm trying to address today if it's going to happen. So, Polybius is concerned about this. He's the father of Anacyclosis, and he says, so you believe your intentions are good, but how can I trust you? And the whole Anacyclosis thing is kind of complicated. Who's heard of Polybius before? Anybody? Greek historian? Got one person. So monarchy, you got a good king, devolves into a tyrant when he gets more concerned with his own interest, which is ruled by one. Then you go into an aristocracy, which overthrows the tyrant, and that's ruled by many. They become self-serving and evolve into an oligarchy, and then into a democracy, and democracy evolves into mob rule at its most sinister. And this is what happened at Guinness at the turn of the century. They did a lot of early automation that was steam-based and were able to roll it out quicker because it scales quick. They did a lot of gravity, but they had bad managers and an apprentice system, which did not bode well. A lot of the growing practices were taught more like black magic than science, which made it difficult to bring people in and get them to scale it up. So they would hire these multi-dimensional, highly talented people and get them into the organization and say, hey, we want you to be awesome at your job and do awesome things. And they'd say, yes, hire me, I'm awesome, I can do awesome things at your place and do an awesome job. But then they put them in a particular part of the org chart that doesn't exactly enable them to do that. Sometimes they put them in a silo, sometimes the organization can be very vertical, and if they don't have buy-in from leadership, they're not really able to enact the change they need to be able to do that. And are thereby crushed by the expectations of people at the top who are frustrated and don't understand why things aren't magically moving quicker. And this is the problem we want to avoid. And what happened at Guinness, Cecil Guinness, Mr. Christopher Diggs LaDouche, they're kind of the Ned Flanders. They came in and said, enough of this, we're gonna hire a bunch of STEM graduates and get real scientific about brewing. All this witchcraft stuff is going out the door. And one of those guys was William Seeley Gossett. And a shout out to Adam Jacob. CookieOps is kind of like my version of DevOps Kung Fu. It's how I DevOps. And it was inspired a lot by how Gossett approached the thing. So, ICE comms, we heard CAMS earlier today. I like to put the L in, which stands for learning. So it's inclusion, complexity, empathy, culture, automation, lean learning. Yeah. So these break out into the 3 ways nicely, where you've got measurement and sharing, and the second way where you're trying to amplify feedback. You need systems perspective, and then you need a culture of continuous learning and experimentation where you fail and get better. You're also going to need to be curious, you're going to need to be kind, you're going to have some gas in your tank, and you got to be willing to look stupid. You're going to mess things up and have to own it if you're going into this type of role. So, yeah, Bevan was a maltster that Gossett got in touch with, and he was suspicious of the statisticians. He didn't like statisticians. But when he saw that Gossett was using his tools, like students' t-test, to show that he was an awesome maltster, it got him to buy into this whole process of reevaluating and using statistics to do small batch incremental testing, get quick feedback loops, and get that data to the growers so they can make a change, which ultimately leads you to finding creative solutions to your problems in the long run, which is what we're trying to do. Gotta get creative about it. And, do I have another slide? Yes, you've got to chop wood and carry water. This is a lot of hard work, and you got to increase operational expense. They need a lab to work in. Guinness spent a lot of money on lab facilities for these people to go in and experiment with hops and grain and know when they could pull things out of storage and use them in production and get the quality they wanted. And the people they hired in, and you've got to know this yourself, if you're not getting the cooperation you need, then you need to keep moving. If you're just not getting any traction, your words are falling on deaf ears, don't waste your time. My name is Chris Corriere. This is based on a blog post that went up earlier. It's got a lot more information about Guinness and their transformation, and I'd love to talk to anybody about this later if you're interested. Thanks so much.